The South African Weather Service says the Northern Cape, Western Cape and Northwest should brace for severe rain this weekend. At the same time, national government urges South Africans to adhere to instructions from disaster management centers. For more on this discussion, we are joined by South African Weather Services forecaster Lehlohonolo Thobela. Lehlohonolo, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening and thanks for having me.
Lehlohonolo, we're seeing some, I guess, strange weather, if one can put it that way, almost all over the country. Can we,
yes,
yeah?
Yeah, I think most parts of the country are experiencing thunderstorms, but yeah, I think you can go on. I think you were still having another question.
Yeah, I was saying that, is it something that is strange, as I did say, or is it normal weather under the conditions?
Under summer and the conditions that we're having right now, storms and thunderstorms are not as strange as they are, but I think weather extremes have taken a knock in terms of its occurrence, especially countrywide. I mean, if you're in Gauteng, there has been a lot of hail size, huge hail size of an amount of hail happening in an area, not only in Gauteng but the northeastern parts. With the summer as it happened, we've had severe thunderstorms that resulted in heavy rain in a short space of time, leading to flooding. So weather extremes have increased, and I think it has to also do with climate variability from area to area. Southwestern areas of the country have, been experiencing much more of drier conditions, but most of the precipitation has been in the central and the eastern parts.
So looking ahead to the weekend, which one would say it's a big weekend since it is New Year's Eve leading into the New Year's, what sort of weather can we expect? I understand that there's a bit of a severe weather warning.
Yes, I like what you said. Your big weekend, the weekend enkulu.
Weekend enkulu.
So we're expecting a scattered to widespread chance of showers and thunder showers over the central parts of the country, with isolated showers expected for most parts, which would be in the south and the eastern parts. But what's important is the severe thunderstorm warning that we have. We have a yellow level 4 warning, which means the impact of it will be significant, but the likelihood of it is low at this stage. But we have a high chance of severe thunderstorms happening over the areas of the eastern parts of the Northern Cape province, the central and the western parts of the northwest, as well as the southwestern parts of the Free State province from today. Tomorrow they still persist over the eastern parts of the Northern Cape, as well as the western parts of the northwest and southwestern parts of the Free State province. But that's not only limited to thunderstorms. We're expecting disruptive rain along the south coast, which would cover areas around George, spreading all over just before East London in the Eastern Cape, which will cover most parts of the coastline of the western half of the Eastern Cape province tomorrow. Spreading over to, let's move on to the 31st. That's when I think everyone wants to know how the weather will be. Isolated to a scattered chance of showers and thunder showers still remaining over the central and the eastern areas, but the most important part will have a widespread chance along the south coast, which would then be, that's where we expect much more of the heavy rain over the south coast of the country. Going all forward to the 1st of January, which will be a new year, we're having the scattered to widespread chance of showers and thunder showers being over the escarpments of the Drakensberg, spreading over from KwaZulu-Natal to touching escarpments of Mpumalanga, but it will remain partly cloudy and warm over most parts of Gauteng and the southern, or rather the northern parts of the country, which would touch base with Limpopo, where we have just a 30% chance of showers and thunder showers.
Maybe hold a little bit on those firecrackers or crickets, as we call them, for New Year's Eve. But on a more serious note, Lehlohonolo, we're seeing also in some areas that are traditionally warmer or hot, if one can put it that way, like Limpopo and the Northern Cape, also experiencing a lot of rain. What would be the cause of this? Is it just generally, as we always hear, that climate change?
I think I'd say climate variability more than climate change, because now each and every area varies in terms of its climate. Because climate change, I think climate change experts would tell you better in terms of the temperatures and how they measure it according to ENSO and the Pacific Ocean. But in terms of climate variability, I think the weather extremes have increased. In fact, if you move north in the climate of the country as we speak as a whole, as much as we've been in La Nina for the 3 consecutive years, the northern areas of the country have been dry. And if you look at the climate extract and the climate atlas that we have at the South African Weather Service, you'd read, and it states that the more north you go, the drier it gets. And with it being north and drier, getting drier and drier, you are still having weather extremes. Weather extremes then would result in heavy rain that results in runoff, and in some areas you seem to flash flooding. Due to some areas you find that they're saturated, but others they are more dry. So as dry as it is, if you have a thunderstorm that moves in a quick surface, then it's as hard as it gets, you'd find that the water then tends to run off, and instead of building, it erodes some of the things that are there.
You spoke earlier on, Lehlohonolo, about level 4, and we know normally we talk about level 4, level 3, and also the colors that are attached to this. Which one should we as citizens be a little bit more cautious that would say maybe stay indoors instead?
I think with heavy severe weather warning in terms of severe thunderstorms, for as long as we have an impact-based warning sent out, it would be good to follow the instruction of being cautious and being ready for anything, because with the severe thunderstorms, as now we talk about yellow level 4. Yellow level 4 means the impact of the warning, should it happen, in terms of the likelihood it being low as for now, should it happen, the impact that might happen will be very significant in terms of there would be car damage, there will be infrastructure damage, there will be some personal people, or rather lives being lost, or people washed away with the rivers. So I think in terms of the hierarchy of how it grows, yes, I would say orange is then more of its hectic, and the red then like how a robot would work, yellow, green and red. The yellow is the least of the more impact, but the orange is the impactful one, because then you would see the severity of it, and the 10 where the red one would also be more severe than the yellow. But it doesn't limit then the fact of a severe or impact-based warning. The reason why we send them out is for people to be cautious of the weather extremes that might happen and cause harm as much as South Africa as a whole. But in terms of severity, yes, they do differ in terms of color, and yellow would be obviously less impactful than the orange as well as the red.
Lehlohonolo, just as we conclude the conversation, I mean, normally a conversation like this would be where people get information about these levels, these warnings. But is there somewhere where South Africans can go if they are planning a trip, planning a holiday, just trying to check what the weekend is like, where they can actually get a detailed information about the warnings and what they mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think first one would be the South African Weather Service website, and that's where we have all that. We even have a frequently asked questions side today. By there, we have different types of division in the website. We have a forecasting side, climate research, so it depends on what the person wants to learn about. We also have a Weather Smart app over the South African Weather Service, but that's not only limited to the forecast. People nowadays have social media. We send out forecasts on Twitter, Facebook, as well as Instagram, and in some instances we go live and speak about the weather that is to come, depending on what's the impact and what's yet to come.
Are we likely going to see the rains particularly subsiding anytime soon?
For as long as we're still in summer, my brother, we're still here to see rain. And for as long as we are still here to go on into summer, late summer, we're still expecting tropical systems to bring much more of rain, especially in the northern parts. But we're yet to see how it goes up until January.
Lehlohonolo, thank you very much for coming through to speak to us.